Okay, welcome. We're live on YouTube. Once again, it's quite a while ago that I was live here, and some things have changed since then. I have, not had so much time to work on my mcpkg project that I started, and I was working last time on. So I quickly unlock my um, So, my Linux computer. So, yeah, I had some little issues with my tech setup here. So, now I think we can go and let's see what we will do today. So let's look into the code base actually, which is 1 second. Let me set everything up. Not once again, please. That's not okay. Let's give it a try. So, here we go for today. Let's see how well this works. I have to admit that maybe my voice will not be very reliable today. So let's see how well it survives the day or the stream. But let's give it a try. So what we want to do today is, first of all, we all know that there's plenty of AI coding agents out there in the market, and I usually have used Claude Code recently as my main agent, but I realized also that it became quite slow, and it doesn't support all the things that I wanted to be to support. So, for example, I cannot for my day job, I cannot use Claude Code with Anthropic's API behind it. I have to use it with Bedrock. And the latest models are not available in Bedrock, while I could use a lot of different models via GitHub Copilot, but Claude Code doesn't support GitHub Copilot subscriptions as a way to use Claude models. So this is where OpenCode comes in. So OpenCode is actually one of those plenty of coding agents out there. And actually one I really like because it's, first of all, it's open source. It even has quite some GitHub stars here. So it's open source. It's written in a mixture of TypeScript and Go. Actually, the coding agent itself is written in TypeScript, running on Node.js. And there is a terminal user interface that is written in Go as a front end for that. So you can easily install it. For example, if you're on Mac, you can use Homebrew. If you're on Arch, just use Paru as your AWR helper. And then feel free to read through all of that. So there's quite some nice features. There's a TUI that is quite fast. It feels a lot faster than actually Claude Code, although the quality of Claude Code might still be better in some cases, but the TUI is actually feels much faster. They have a sharing feature actually, which is quite interesting. You can just upload all your sessions to their server and then share it. And if this is not an option for you, they have an enterprise self-hosting option there as well. And I can use it with GitHub Copilot, for example, in my day job, but I can use my existing Claude AI subscription as well that I can use with Claude Code. And that's quite nice. And it works with any editor. They have actually an editor command that you can use to open whatever editor you want, which basically means NeoVim, obviously. And what I didn't use so far is actually this LSP stuff. Maybe I used it automatically, I don't know, but it is a feature I haven't paid too much attention to. So basically, yeah, quite some you can go yourself through the FAQs if you want. Hey, welcome to the stream, actually. So yeah, that's roughly OpenCode. Feel free to check it out yourself. I've already pre-installed it here on my CachyOS machine. And the second thing we want to look into today is actually Spec-Kit. So OpenCode is an alternative to Claude Code, and Spec-Kit. What is Spec-Kit? So there's basically, so SpecKit is actually a project released by GitHub. So it's not just on GitHub, it is released by the GitHub team actually. And if you look into the README, you find actually what it's all about. Spec-driven development flips the script on traditional software development. For decades, code has been king. Specification were just scaffolding, where we built and discarded once the real work of coding began. Spec-driven development changes this. Specification becomes executable, directly generating work implementations rather than just guiding them. Sounds like a lot of interest, well, a lot of buzzword and hype stuff, of course, but there's actually quite some interesting thing in this spec-driven development approach here. So what's quite interesting about it is the idea that you can actually tell your LLM what it should do. And if you have a good specification of the feature you want to implement, well, then you can let the code agent just run, you know. And you can even run multiple of them. So if you go back here to the features, well, there is multi-session feature. So the multi-session feature means start multiple agents in parallel on the same project. Haven't tried this feature out yet, but you know, that's actually how it works. So you have multiple features you want to build, you have specifications for each of them, and then you start multiple sessions of your coding agent and let it just do the work. At the end, it will create just a pull request for you, and you can just review the pull request like you would do for every other coworker as well. And yeah, that's actually it. The idea, at least, is like that. And today I want to look into that. So there is my own little open source project. We worked on that one in the last two streams. The last stream was actually looking into Rust. I discarded the idea, mainly because I think Rust is not that easy to use, especially on stream. So for the for fast execution, or not fast execution at runtime, but actually fast execution at development time for me, myself, I decided to continue with Python instead, which was actually quite nice because on the first stream, when I did the first prototype in Python, that was actually quite nice because it was done after an hour with what I actually wanted to do, and it just worked. Last time where we wanted to implement some stuff in Rust, it took, I think, more than an hour and it did not work. Instead, I had just yet another déjà vu with the Rust compiler having some weird or well, more complicated issue. No, Docker is actually, so there's a question on chat if Docker is needed for the installation. No, it's not. So OpenCode runs as, yeah, as I said, it's well, you can just install it here with Homebrew or with Paru or with, of course, you can also use npm if you want to. And it is actually just a Node.js module if you want it like that. But it also includes a terminal user interface, which is written in Go. But luckily, Go doesn't require anything from your machine, just that it can execute code or execute the binaries. So you just get basically some TypeScript that runs in Node.js. So you need Node.js somehow. But if you install it via Homebrew or via Paru or on Arch, then you get all the dependencies installed as well. So no need to put a Docker container around that. I'm pretty sure you can put this also into a Docker container if you want to and don't want this locally on your machine without any kind of isolation, but it's not necessary. You can also do it without. Yeah, as I said, my mcpkg project, little open source project. It's very much in the beginning, but we will continue with doing some Python here. And the idea is basically to use this project as a guinea pig and set up this spec-driven development flow. So let's see how far we get with that today. But we want to set up this flow and maybe see if we can have some early success with letting the agent do some coding for us. So, you know, we want to delegate actually the coding to the agent instead of doing it ourselves. I recently read a nice article about a code base which is 90% from agent written And I actually like that goal. So the target is to get there somehow close. I don't know how much of that, how close I really want to become, but let's see. So let's quickly go through the idea of SpecKit. So get started is quite interesting. We can just use UVX here to execute it once. I think we don't need more than this. Let's just copy this command here and let's switch over to the let's just switch over to the terminal. And I'm here already in my mcpkg project. And if I paste in this one and add a dot at the end for the current directory, then it will just initialize the current directory because we have already a project. So this is actually how you put this into an existing project. If you don't know UVX, you have to install UV, obviously, to get UVX. It's a package manager for Python. So Spec-Kit uses a little Python script to initialize everything, which is fine. I use UV anyway, so it's already on my machine, and I use it for mcpkg as well. So let's just run it. So you don't have to use this in a Python project. UVX just works. You can install UVX via Homebrew or Peru or whatever you want to use there as a package manager. You can also just grab the UV binary and put it somehow in the path, and it would also work. So we have the UVX command, and now we can execute this one. It will resolve actually everything. And current directory is not empty. Yes, I know. Template files will be merged with existing content and may override existing files. Yeah, that's totally fine. So the first thing we can actually select here is the current coding is the AI assistant. Sorry. We have to choose our AI assistant, and now I realize, oh wait, there is actually, let's make this look a little bit better here with my own face on the screen. So we can select here via through Copilot, Claude, Cursor, and of course we can select OpenCode here. There are plenty others like Amazon Q and so on. So it looks like Spec-Kit actually supports quite a lot of different coding agents. We will go with OpenCode here. So let's do that. We're on a Linux machine, so of course we use a POSIX shell, and we can just use that one. And here we go. So it tells us a little bit what it did. If we scroll up a little bit, it tells us a little bit about, first of all, the agent folder security. That's quite interesting. Some agents may store credentials, auth tokens, or other identifying and private artifacts in agent folder within your project. Consider adding .opencode or parts of it to .ignore to prevent accidental credential leakage. Well, that's actually a nice tip. I haven't done that because I haven't had any specifics in the OpenCode directory yet. Then it tells us you're already in the project directory. Start using / commands with your AI agent. Okay, so there's a couple of / commands that are added by Spec-Kit to our agent. So let's have a quick look how this works. Let's see this. Of course, not Claude, but the OpenCode one. So it looks, so here we can see it actually. So the OpenCode command directory within our project, that's actually where Spec-Kit .analyze, Spec-Kit checklist, and so on have been installed. So this is a set of different commands that have been added here to the OpenCode commands directory. So they should become available in OpenCode, and we should just be able to use them. Let's see how well this works when we try it out. But let's also have a quick look into one of them. For example, let's take the Constitution one, which is, as we can see here in the documentation, actually we can use it to establish project principles. So let's give it a try and look into that one first before we execute it. So you can see this is just a markdown file, and the whole trick is actually that naming the markdown file will tell OpenCode that this is actually a command that it should use with a slash, that you could use with a slash. This is the same in Claude as well. So if you use Claude code, there's a .claude directory. There's, I think, also commands in it, and it also uses the name. So you would have pretty much the same behavior, just with a different root directory in your repository. But if we look through that, we see there's quite some stuff in it. So first of all, there's a description here. There's kind of a header here with a description. I think that's the typical YAML header that you have on top of markdown files, which has been somehow established by GitHub. And that one contains a description. So what is this? Well, we will see that one in a second. It is basically the description for that command, and that can be shown by the agent when you use that in the 2E, for example. And then we have a couple of things here. So we have a user input. So it puts here some text from the arguments. So it looks like whatever you put as arguments, it will add them here. And you must consider the user input before proceeding, if not empty. You're updating the project constitution, specify memory constitutions. This file is a template containing placeholder tokens in square brackets, e.g. project name, principal name, blah, 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 blah. Okay, interesting. Your job is to collect, derive concrete values, fill the template precisely, propagate any amendments across dependent artifacts. Follow this execution flow. Load the existing constitution, template. Okay. Identify every placeholder token of the form all caps identifier. Okay. The user might require less or more principles than the ones used in the template. Collect derived values for placeholders. Okay, interesting. Draft the update constitution content, replace every placeholder with concrete text, preserve heading area hierarchy, ensure each principal section sustains name, line, paragraph, blah, blah, blah. Consistency propagation checklist, read templates, plan template, and ensure any constitution check or rules within with updated principles, and so on and so on and so on. So the references here several other files from the specify directory, which is quite interesting. We will look into that one in a second. And yeah, so it goes through it. It has an impact report, and so on and so on and so on. Validation before final output, dates format. Write the complete constitution to specify memory constitution. Okay. And then a new version and bump rational, any files. Okay, looks like this can be used to set up some basic principles. If we look back to the documentation here in the README, it exactly tells us this. So it says, well, of course, first you install specify. That's what we have done already. So next step is establish project principles. So use Spec-Kit constitution command. That's the one we looked into right now, to create your project's governing principles and development guidelines that will guide all subsequent development. So here's an example that we could use. Spec-Kit constitution, that's the slash command we have seen. And then you can provide some information about this, like testing standards, user experience, consistency, and performance requirements. We could just run this. Let's give it a try. It looks like a nice starting point. So we run OpenCode here directly in the in our repository, and in this case we just paste in the stuff that we got from the documentation. So you can see I use Claude Sonnet 4.5 here. I hope that's good. Let's see. So let's run this. And as you can see, it will show here on the top the command that we have used. And it added the create principles focus. So this is actually the text that we added as an argument to the command. It added it, basically replaced it, and then displayed the command as we would execute it now. So now it does a lot of things. It reads the template for task template. It looks into specify scripts. It sees several scripts laying around here. It reads the agent MD, which starts with Claude MD. Okay, that might be an historic thing. Let's see. Now it has enough context. Let me draft the update constitution based on the user's requirements. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. Okay, there's a summary. New constitution version 1.0, version bound rational, initial constitution establishment, minor version, new governance framework. Okay, it uses versioning for the constitution. That's nice. Core principles established, type safety and code quality, strict typing, zero tolerance, formatting, linting. Test-driven development, non-negotiable, TDD cycle with 80% coverage minimum. Okay, I don't have any coverage tracking here yet, but I hope it will set it up if it needs it. But pretty good that it does this. So I actually like the principles that it has here: user experience, consistency, CLI conventions, MCP compliance, actionable errors. Yes, performance requirements, less than 200 millisecond startup. Well, sounds good. 2 seconds package operations, whatever this should be. And it should be less than 100 MB memory. Okay, let's see how good it is at the end. And maintainability and simplicity. Yeah, nothing very surprising. Quality gates defined. Oh, that's nice. Format check, lint type check, PyTest, performance benchmark, security validation, all enforced via CI, failures block merge. Yeah, okay, so quality gate is basically on the pull request. That's totally fine. Everything can be executed locally. Template alignment status, plan template MD, constitution check, section present. Spec template, functional requirements and success criteria aligned. Okay. And task template, TDD cycle and test first approach supported. Suggested commit message, docs, established constitution, code quality, testing, UX, performance principles, build, Claude Sonnet, Okay, nice. Then commit the constitution on a new branch. No, not a new branch. Commit the constitution. Yeah, just commit it. But do not push it. Wait. Have to confirm actually the signature. So it committed the change. And it looks like it worked. So let's quickly jump over here. Let's have a quick look into lazy Git. So what we see here is we have the commands. We haven't committed them yet. Not sure if I should commit them actually. But when we look here in the main branch, what we can see, the latest commit here is establish establish constitution version 1. If we go into that, we have the constitution, we have the different pre-checks and the templates. So what we can see here is that all of this lives in the .specify directory. And that's actually a different thing that we have seen before. So what we have looked into before was the commands that are OpenCode specific. And that you could have specific to every agent. But now we have this .specify directory here, and the .specify directory contains actually quite a couple of things. So it contains our constitution, it contains our different scripts for checking, it contains some templates to run different things. So when we look, for example, here in the plan template, we might see that implementation plan with a feature here. So there is actually also some markdown in it, but it is actually used as templates, and it has committed everything. So that's quite nice. And exactly the thing that we need. So let's continue from here. So let's create a new session. And let's again look into the documentation, how to use that one. So we have created now the constitution with governing principles. We haven't looked into it. So I would say ideally we should also have a look. We should open the we should open it in an editor, the constitution, and read the constitution and see if this is actually really what we wanted to do. We just trusted the summary at the end. But we should probably rework it afterwards. I think that's an important part, that you let the agent generate something, but afterwards you might still go and improve it in one or the other way. If I understood this correctly, also you can run the constitution command frequently with whatever you want to put here. So if you're realizing that code quality is not covered in the way you want, you could just call the constitution command again and be more precise about what you're missing on the code quality part, and then it can improve somehow the constitution and update it. I think that's how I read at least the command in the end, that it will do that. So the next thing here is the create spec. So we have the specify command provided by Spec-Kit, and the command, what is it doing? Describe what you want to build, focus on what and why, not the tech stack. Okay, sounds good. Let's ignore the tech stack. Build an application that can help me organize my photos in separate photo albums. Albums are grouped by date and can be reorganized by dragging and dropping on the main page. Albums are never in other nested albums. Within each album, photos are previewed in a title-like interface. Okay. So we use the spec or the specify command to create, to specify somehow what we want to build here, how our application should look like. The next thing we will do is we will plan. We will use the plan command to provide our tech stack and architecture choices. So the application uses Beat with minimal number of libraries, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is planning. And now that's actually the thing I was looking for. It's actually becoming really interesting. So as we have seen, so the constitution will just introduce basic principles. How do we want to work? Then comes the specification, which is used to tell actually what are we building actually. What is it? A description of our project. So it could be a library, an application, whatever. Then comes the technical implementation, which is all about the tech stack and all the stuff. So up to point 4, everything is focused on the general setup of the project. So we will have different documents. Probably each of them will create a different one, a constitution, and probably specification, and maybe technical plan or something like that. These might be different. Well, that's at least what I expect right now. Might be different, markdown files that are used actually as a context. So they will be added to the context as general project information with a focus on technical implementation, on the project specification, general constitution. So we have kind of a separation between the the three different parts, and we can update them and manually or with help of the project or with help of the Spec-Kit commands here. And here at point 5 is where it then becomes very interesting, because what we want to use is Spec-Kit to break it down into tasks, because you do not just implement the full application in one big chunk. You know, that's not what coding agents are able to do. You cannot tell it, oh, build me an app and the result will be good. That's not how it works. So what we need to do is actually to break it down into tasks. So we can tell Spec-Kit to do that for us. And it comes up then with probably some actionable tasks that it thinks make sense. And then you can review that list. You can add your own task. You can split them up, for example, and do other stuff to improve that list. So we will have then a list of tasks. That's hopefully the plan. And once you have the task, you can actually execute them. So you can use Spec-Kit implement to execute all tasks and build your feature according to the plan. That's quite interesting. So it will then start and implement all of them. Sounds like a very interesting plan. So anything else we have here to look into? Yeah, we have the initialize. Okay, this is the command line tool. We don't need this right now. Okay. We have some optional commands. What are they doing? We have clarify under specified areas, recommended for Spec-Kit plan, formally quiz me. Okay. Spec-Kit analyze, cross artifacts, consistency, coverage analysis. Okay, run after Spec-Kit tasks. Okay, but before implement. Sounds good. And we have a checklist, generate custom quality checklist that validate requirements, completeness, clarity, and consistency, like unit test for English. What else do we have? Core philosophy. Spec-driven development is a structured process that emphasizes intent-driven development, where specification define the what before the how, rich specification creation using guardrails, and organizational principles, multiple step refinement rather than one-shot code generation from props. Yeah, that's of course what we want to do. Heavy reliance on advanced AI model capabilities. Yeah, of course, that's what we want to do. Development phases. We have, that's interesting. 0 to 1 development for the greenfield. Generate from scratch, start with high-level requirements, generate specifications, plan implementation steps, build production-ready applications. Okay. And then creative exploration or iterative enhancement, where we have an existing project and want to improve that, add features iteratively, modernize, yeah, of course. Technology independence, user-centric development, creative and iterative process, blah, blah, blah. A lot of stuff in it. So Git credential manager. Yeah, that's also nothing we really need. let's have a look into the detailed processes. So specify init, we had established project principles. So here we get a little instruction. You will know that things are configured correctly if you see the constitution. Yes, creates project specification. Okay, this is an example prompt. So this is actually what we need to do in the end. We need to tell it to specify, and then develop taskify, team productive platform, and so on and so on and so on. So it looks like a lot of text that they provide here as a prompt. And then it can actually start planning and spec drafting process. Yeah, totally makes sense. Once this step is completed, you should have a new branch created that is create taskify, as well as a new specification in specs taskify directory. The produced specification should contain a set of user stories and functional requirements as defined in the template. Okay. So after the specify command, we should have actually a specification with a 001, which is quite interesting because this means that specify actually is not a general thing for the project. It is actually something that we do for every specific step. So whenever we want to implement a feature, we might specify that particular feature. In this case, we want to start with an application, so we start probably with the basic instructions what the application should do. But yeah, that's roughly what we want to do. Functional specification clarification required before planning. So we run clarify, and example freeform refinement prompt. For each sample project or project that you create, there should be a variable number of tasks, between 5 and 15 tasks for each one, randomly distributed into different states of completion. Make sure that there's at least one task in each stage of completion. Okay. Validate. Read the review and acceptance checklist and check off each item in the checklist if the feature spec meets the criteria. Leave it empty if it does not. Do not treat its first attempt as final. Yeah, that's a very important thing. I 100% agree on that. Whatever the coding agent is generating is not a final thing. It's a good starting point. That's how things work. But let's give it a try. So we have OpenCode still open here. Sorry. So we have OpenCode still open. We have a new session using Cloud Sonnet 4.5. We want to run Spec-Kit specify. And now we want to specify what our application should actually do. So we want to create what do we want to create? We want to create the mcpkg project. So mcpkg is a tool to manage project specific prompts and resources for AI coding agents. The prompts and resources are provided via the model context protocol MCP. Each user can create multiple workspaces. Each workspace is a SQLite 3 database. And multiple projects within the workspace. So that's the first thing we want to have. Prompts and resources belong to a project. What else do we have? Prompts and resources belong to the project. Do we have anything else here? No, I think that's a good starting point. Let's see what happens. So let's watch the robots work for us. So it's generating, it's doing feature branch stuff. Template. Interestingly, it's switching to a new branch. mcpkg is a that sounds weird, but for some reason it decided that mcpkg is a good name for a feature. I don't know, maybe I got this wrong, but maybe it takes the first 3 words of the prompt as the feature name. I don't know. Sounds like a weird choice, to be honest. So you must read the file before overriding it. Use the read tool first. What is the read tool? There is no read tool. It's instruction. There's an instruction for the agent, but there's also an editor command which is doing nothing here. Okay. While it's working, let's have a quick look what happened. So this is still irrelevant, but we have now the specs directory being created with a first weird name feature. There is a checklist in it with requirements and a spec file in it. And now we are also asked for a choice. So what do we have here? It went through all kinds of things. Validation results. No. Assumptions out of scope are all present. No. Markers remain. Found one marker in the user story 5. Scenario 2. Okay, looks like it created some user stories for us. Sounds good, but it requires some clarification. Okay, we'll do that. Issue found. Needs clarification marker in user story 5 acceptance test scenario. Given no active project is selected when MCP client requests prompts or resources, then MCP returns appropriate endpoint response indicating no active project needs clarification. Should it return empty list, error, or all items from active workspace? An empty list, obviously. MCP response when no active project. Turn empty list. Custom. We will do custom. So, okay. So the the MCP server is started via the start command, which needs a mandatory flag minus project to select the project, the active project. If that flag is missing or pointing to a non-existent project, the command should fail and the MCP server should not start. This will guarantee a correctly selected active project and the described case is not possible. Let's see what it does with this information. I hope it can treat it well. So let's see. Excellent clarification. That makes the design much cleaner. Let me update the specification to reflect this requirement. You're welcome. So, cool. So it updated user story 5. I think the spec is something we will have a closer look into for sure, because I think it's very valuable to have a look into that once it is written. So, and now it's updating other things like FR026, okay. Preserve all data when system is restarted, track with workspace, which workspace is currently active, allow users to delete a workspace and its associated allow users to create projects within a workspace. It's doing quite a lot of things. And I wonder how much content it produces that we need to read afterwards. So it's doing and doing. While we're waiting for OpenCode to work, there's actually something I would like to highlight here. So you can see this here on the top. There is this share command to create a shareable link. I've mentioned this quickly in the beginning, that one of the features of OpenCode is that you can actually sync your sessions to a server provided by them or hosted, self-hosted in your company. And you can use then explicitly the share command, which will upload your session to the server and create a link under which you can use that. The problem is this link is, well, everyone who has that link can access it. It's actually public, but it's not listed somewhere. So I guess this will be some random code in the link that is not easy to guess, but still it is publicly available. So no additional protection there. So specification complete. Created a so first of all, it created a branch, a spec file, a checklist, sorry, with requirements in it. So all of this happened under the weirdly named feature that we are talking about here. But yeah, that's how it is. Created a comprehensive specification for mcpkg and MCP-based package manager for AI coding, agent prompts, and resources, spec defines. 5 prioritized user stories. Okay. Covering workspace management, project organization, prompt resource management, and MCP server integration. Functional requirements organized by domain, workspace, project prompt, resources, MCP data persistence, and so on and so on. Key entities, workspace, project prompt, and resource. Yeah, sounds a lot like I want this. Comprehensive edge cases, clear scope by boundaries, validation results. All needs clarification markers resolved. Next steps. Okay, here we go. The specification is ready for planning. You can proceed with Spec-Kit plan, generate implementation plan, manually review and refine and refinement of the specification. Yes. What we will do is definitely the manual review. So let's open the editor and check out the spec. Looks quite not that well formatted, but let's have a quick look. So user description, that is actually the prompt that we inserted in the beginning, scenarios and testing. Story 1. As an AI coding agent user, I need to create isolated workspaces to organize my prompts and resources for different contexts, e.g. work versus personal, client A versus client B, so that I can keep them separated. I don't know if this is really correct. That sounds like a stupid answer. Workspaces are foundational container for all other data. Without the ability to create and manage workspaces, no other functionality can be used. Independent test can be fully tested by creating a workspace, listing all workspaces, and deleting a workspace. Delivers the value of isolated data storage. Given no workspace exists, it fully misunderstands what a workspace is. No, it does. Well, it kind of understands it. As an AI coding agent user, I need to create projects within a workspace to group related prompts and resources. Okay, I'm not convinced that this is a good solution. Let's see what we can do with the clarify command. So let's provide a prompt here with some clarification that we want to have different. I hope that's how it works. Let's see. So let's start with the first one. The first one is there should be the default workspace. The user should not need to create a workspace. First of all, we want to clarify. The user of mcpkg is a software engineer, not a software engineer. Yeah. The user must not does not have to create a workspace. Because default workspace is created for them. The default workspace is used by default. If no workspace is selected. Via a flag. Via a workspace flag on the start command. A workspace is automatically created if the start command is executed. Let's see what it does with this clarification information. So it checks the prerequisites, figures out it is on the branch. It looks like I haven't looked this up in the code, but there are some scripts in Spec-Kit, and it looks like it actually checks the name of the current branch to identify the current feature, and then it looks up the specification of that particular feature in the in the correct directory. So if you have multiple features there, then you have just multiple branches, and the current branch is pointing to the correct feature we are working on, which kind of makes a lot of sense. You create a branch, you add the specification, you add the implementation, you create a pull request from that branch, and then can review all of that together as a final thing. So it looks like a pretty good idea to do it like that, having everything that belongs together in the same pull request. So it now adjusts several things. So we are waiting, we are waiting, we are waiting. And it does a lot of work. And work. So it now adjusts the whole specification to the clarification we just provided. So it looks like it made a lot of assumptions. And now that I clarified this particular point, it now has to change a lot of details within the specification to make this work as expected. And now I'll identify present critical questions one at a time based on my analysis. Here are the highest priority ambiguities. Okay, resource URI handling. When resource reference local files versus remote URLs, how should the system handle them? Okay, default workspace name. What? Yeah, that's a very good one. I didn't provide this, but that's actually a very, very good thing. Error recovery, current access. How should the system handle corrupt database files? Oh, I didn't think even about corrupt database files, but that's actually a very good point. Concurrent access, should the system prevent or allow concurrent MCP server instances? Yeah, why not? Prompt resource metadata. What metadata should be captured for prompts and resources? Yeah, okay, we will look into that later. So starting with the first one, resource URI handling. When a resource references a local file path, how should the MCP server expose it to AI agent? When a resource references a local file path, how should the MCP server expose it to the AI agent? Recommended option B. This is the most secure and practical approach to avoid exposing absolute paths. Okay, return the URI as is. For reference, AI client handles all file access. Return URI as is. AI client is responsible for reading the file content. Read the file content and return it inline via MCP read resource. Copy file. This one I actually don't understand. Copy file contents into the database when resource is added. Serve from database. Provide a different short answer. Yeah, I provide a different one. Oh, 5 words. Less than 1. How can I put this into 5 words? All resources are in the database. It is actually 6. Resources are in the database only. Yeah. Recalling this is an answer, okay. So, generating. Looks like there are quite a lot of changes coming from that clarification. And there have been more. Exactly, the default workspace name. Let's see what it comes up with. The default, simpler, clearer, and follows CLI conventions, similar to Git master, main branch, Docker's default network format. You can accept the suggestion by saying yes. I think default is actually not such a bad idea. So let's say just yes. So let's watch it doing some interesting stuff here. Question 3. Corrupted database handling. Oh yeah, that's an interesting one. When it works, because it's interesting because I didn't think even about it, but it's actually right. We should handle this case. When a workspace database file is corrupted or unreadable, what should the system do? Recommended. Option B. This provides the safest approach for data integrity. Okay. Attempting automatic recovery should make corruption worse. Okay. So, fail immediately with errors. With error message, require manual intervention. Fail with error and suggest recovery options. Backup restoration, deletion. Attempt automatic recovery. Create new workspace if recovery fails. Automatically rename corrupted file and create fresh workspace. I think we will go with A, because this is actually a very good point, but this is not the feature to get this working. There will probably be a complete new way, or completely, well, there is a plan to provide synchronization later. So if the database file gets corrupted, what we could do with synchronization in place, we could just go and create a new file and sync it again completely from the server. So that would actually recreate the file, which should be totally fine. But this is not in place now, and we will not build this as part of this initial feature. So yeah, it's something we will have to look into later. So let's keep it a manual approach first. So still waiting for something to happen. So question 4.5. Concurrent MCP server instances. Should the system allow multiple MCP server instances simultaneously? Recommended option B. Flexibility for software engineers who might want to work with multiple projects simultaneously. Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. So allow multiple instances for different projects, prevent same project twice. No, allow unlimited concurrent instances, rely on CLI locking. Yes. We will go for C. Because you also want multiple, well, it's a difficult question. The MCP server, right now, the plan is actually to make the MCP server available via stdio, which is totally fine to do. But if we do this via stdio protocol, then we will launch every agent that runs, every instance of the agent will just run their own stdio based server. So for this initial starting point, we will just have multiple instances of this MCP server running on the same project, even if you want to run multiple agents with multiple sessions on the same server. So this is for now. At a later point, it might be different. So we might at some point decide to go for an HTTP-based transport, at least as an option, or maybe completely for this MCP server. So if we do that at a later point, then the agent could just connect via HTTP to a local MCP server, and then this MCP server could serve many agents from just a single instance of the MCP server. So in that case, we would handle this differently. And I totally see the problem here. So SQLite, if we have the same SQLite file being used by multiple processes, and they want to write concurrently to that process, that's obvious. That's not going to work, because SQLite requires that only one process at the same time has write access, and it blocks additional write access from other processes. So the question is totally valid, but for now, we will just go with this simple solution and think about a better solution later. So, question 5 of 5, name and identifier constraints. What constraints should apply to workspace, project, prompt, and resource names? Option B is recommended, alphanumeric plus hyphens underscore dots. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think we can go for B. We can relax it later if we want to. So wait until it's done. User provides invalid characters. So all 5 questions has been answered. Dun, dun, dun. User persona clarified. Wait, not so far. Coverage summary. User persona clarified, default workspace behavior, resource storage model database, naming constraints defined, interaction, workspace selection via flags, auto creation, flow specified, non-functional, logging observability detail is better suited for planning phase. Okay, deferred. Integration, resource content storage clarified in database, not file refs, corruption handling, concurrent access, naming validation, technical choices, well documented. Okay. Consistent terminology, maintained completion signals. All user stories have testable acceptance criteria. Oh, interesting. Let's review them probably. Key decisions made. Okay, outstanding items, none, all critical ambiguity. Yeah, might make sense. Let's have another look into the editor with the spec. And let's quickly walk through that. So we have, yeah, so that's actually interesting. So it had the user input. now we have a clarification section here in the spec as well. So the clarification spec actually documented our decisions that we made in this session. Interestingly, with a specific date, as we just have this one, but it's actually quite nice. It's basically like a refinement session when you discuss the features and want to clarify actually how things should really look like. So we have user scenarios and testing. The story one is work with default workspace. It has even a priority. That's funny. As a software engineer, I need the default workspace automatically created for me so that it's now a software engineer. Very well done. I think that's exactly how it should be. Finally, as a user for me so that I can immediately start organizing prompts and resources without manual setup. Yes, that's what I want to do. So the next thing is why this priority? Providing a default workspace reduces friction, allows users to get started immediately. This is a foundational container for all other data. Okay, fine. Independent test can be fully tested by running the start command, which auto creates default workspace, creating projects in it and verifying workspace exists. Delivers the value of 0 configuration startup. 100%. That's how it should be. Acceptance scenarios. Given the workspace exists, when user runs the start command without workspace, then a workspace named default is automatically created. Default workspace already exists when user runs the start command without a workspace flag. The existing default workspace is used. Given user wants to use a different workspace, when user runs start command with workspace custom name, yes, that workspace is created if it doesn't exist or if it is used. Multiple workspace exists when user lists workspace with no projects. When user deletes the workspace, then the workspace and its database file are removed. Well, yeah. How will it do the deletion? Given a workspace with existing projects, when user attempts to delete it, then user is warned and must confirm deletion. No. This is something we will clarify. As a software engineer, I need to create projects within a project to group, within a workspace to group related prompts and resources. Yes, exactly, that's the idea. Independent tests can be fully tested by creating projects within the workspace. Yes, 100%. Acceptance scenarios, given a workspace exists, when user creates a project in that workspace, then the project is created. Given a project with no prompts or resources, the project is removed from the workspace. Given a project with existing prompts or resources, then user is warned and must confirm deletion. Given an existing project, when user renames the project, then the project name is updated without affecting its prompts. Yeah. User story 3, retrieve prompts. Given a project exists, when user adds a prompt with a name and content to start that project, then the prompt is stored in the project. Given prompts exist in a project and MCP server started with that project, when an MCP cloud lists available prompts, then all prompts from that project are returned. Yes, that's totally fine. Multiple prompts in a project, and so on and so on. Retrieve resources. Resources complement prompts. Yeah, I know. Not so fine. A project exists when user adds a resource with a name. URI content and optional metadata to that project, then the resource and its content are stored in the project database. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Start MCP server with project context. Given the user omits workspace flag, when user starts MCP server project flag, then default workspace is used and server starts with that project from the default workspace. Given the user provides project. Yeah, that's clear. User omits project flag, then the command fails. Yes. Yes. Edge cases. Yeah, that's true. Oh, functional requirements. Ooh. That's interesting. Must automatically create workspace defaults. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that's a lot of things. Data persistent. Oh, wait. Resource management. Prompt management. Workspace management. Hmm. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things are defined here. And there's also measurable outcomes, assumptions, out of scope, sharing workspaces or projects between multiple users. Yes, that's out of scope for sure. Cloud synchronization of workspaces. Yes, exactly. Completely out of scope. Version controller history tracking for prompts and resources. Yes. Yeah, totally. Makes a lot of sense. Migration tools from other prompt management system. Yeah. There isn't even one, I know. I didn't know that yet, at least. Integration with specific AI coding agent platforms beyond MCP protocol. Ooh. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So right now, I think this is not necessarily all I want to do. There is another clarification actually we want to provide. And that one is, as we can see, there's a lot of back and forth we have to do with our agent until it gets actually what we really want to do. But it's not very clear right now, at least I didn't see the details there. So what I want is that the coding agent will create a command line interface, because the tool actually will not have a user interface or anything like that. It will just have a command line interface and an MCP server. So it doesn't specify what tools the MCP server needs to create specific thing or give the agent the possibility to update things. And it also doesn't specify how to actually deal with project creation and stuff like that. So we want some CLI for that, obviously. So let's then provide some information about that. So Spec-Kit clarify. mcpkg is does not have a user, does not have a graphical user interface. Instead, it provides a command line interface and an API via MCP. The CLI needs functionality to create projects within a workspace. No, create, but actually to manage projects within a workspace, manage prompts and resources in the workspace. Now I have to quickly look up the model context specification because I'm not 100% sure about how this is handled in the spec. I think when we look at resources, then we have protocol messages. We have the possibility to list the resources. We can read a resource. Resource templates. Allow servers to expose parameterized resources using URI templates. Okay, that's fine. List changed notification. Okay, so we can subscribe to changes on a resource, and that's it. Oh. So, yeah, well, that's that, but we need to then specify it here as well. So basically what we just saw is that resources can be read by the AI agent through the MCP, but they cannot be modified. And the same is true for prompts. They also can be read the agent can actually get them to the model context protocol, but it cannot modify them. And that's actually something we want as well. Just to give you to explain the use case here. So let's say we have something like Spec-Kit working. So the current scenario is actually a really good one. So we have Spec-Kit working here, and Spec-Kit allows us to run our to have commands, for example. So the way how commands in Spec-Kit are used within the OpenCode agent, that's exactly how prompts from an MCP server are added or used in an encoding agent usually as well. So you usually get them as / commands. So that way, a prompt in our MCP server is pretty much the same as the commands that we can add to a coding agent. The difference is that an MCP server is just a generic protocol or a standardized protocol to do that, and you don't have to check it into Git in the end. While the because it's in your SQLite database, while the setup with OpenCode and Claude is that each agent has their own directory within your project, and you put the prompts there. So this is very difficult if you want to use if each of your engineers in a team chooses their favorite coding agent, which is actually the scenario that you should be able to work with. then it's good if all your prompts are not duplicated across different directories like .claude, .opencode, .codex, whatever. This doesn't make sense. You don't want to duplicate this just to support all the used coding agents. And you don't want to reinvent everything when you change the coding agent, because innovation happens in this space quite rapidly. So you basically want this more in a generic way, provided via the Model Context Protocol, where it's just prompts. And on the other hand, we also want to craft the prompts. And we see this in this case here. For example, we have templates and we have actually some documents that we want to use for specification and stuff like that. So exactly this kind of information could be served through as resources from our Model Context Protocol server. And this is exactly what mcpkg should do in the end. Serve something similar to Spec-Kit, but it's providing just the infrastructure for it. And for doing that, you want the MCP server to be able to update actually the files or the resources, the specs and whatever, to make sure that these resources can be used or can be updated, can be created, and so on. This is actually a crucial feature here to make this available to the MCP server, because otherwise the MCP server can just create files and then you have to upload the files manually or something like that. But that's not really what we want to work with. So here we want to make sure that the MCP server and the user can create prompts and update prompts and delete prompts, and also write data to them to make sure to actually work on this. So let's specify this. CLI needs functionality to manage projects within a workspace, manage prompts and resources in the workspace. In addition, the AI agent, no, in addition, the MCP client must be able to create and update thanks, Lakshit. Can you tell me exactly what droid is in a few words? In addition, the MCP client must be able to create and update, to create and manage prompts and resources as well. When so they are updated and managed by this as well. The MCP server must provide hi Rakesh. Technology I'm teaching right now, I'm actually not teaching, I'm using and then trying to figure out myself how to work best with that. So what I'm right now doing is using Spec-Kit from GitHub, which is a framework, let's say, for spec-driven development. And I'm using OpenCode to make this as a coding agent to make this work with Cloud Sonnet behind that. And yeah, we're currently trying to, or I'm currently trying to figure out how to set this up to do spec-driven development for my little open source project, mcpkg, which will provide an MCP server providing that you can basically manage to have prompts and other stuff in it. In the first version, it's just storing everything in the local SQLite database, and in a later version, we will have some synchronization for users and team collaboration features. So that you don't have to put all your specs into your Git repository, which will then be just full of Markdown. But instead, you have a dedicated place to have specifications and stuff like that. And we can, yeah, the idea is to build a lot of stuff on top of that. Yeah, for now we are getting started, and we want to do that with the goal to have 90% of the code being written by a coding agent, and that's why we are looking into SpecKit specifically as a framework for doing spec-driven development and telling, in this case, OpenCode, how to effectively build the software. What we did right now is we ran the specify command, which is the first one. So we are far away from actually letting the coding agent write some real code. We are still specifying. We are, for the second time, clarifying. So we are using the Spec-Kit clarify command to explain to the coding agent how specific things should be handled compared to its assumptions that are pretty wrong here. So right now it's about the fact that there is no graphical user interface. There's a CLI. It should understand that it needs to create commands there. And the MCP server must provide tools to do this. Great. So we are clarifying now for the second time. So for everyone who's new to the session, in the beginning, we started the specify command in SpecKit. We can quickly look into the documentation here. So this is a SpecKit repository. And the idea is basically that you have the functional specification and clarification running. So you call the Spec-Kit clarify command, and you provided some prompt with telling it actually what to do. No, the Spec-Kit specify command is the first one that you run, like here. You call Spec-Kit specify in your coding agent. It works with Claude Code and other agents as well. I'm just using OpenCode here. Then you provide, let's say, longer prompt actually to explain to it what you actually want to do, and then it will come up with a spec and user stories and all the stuff for you, which is quite nice. It will do everything on a branch that might have a better or not name in the end. And it will create then here this spec. It also created some requirements markdown file. And you can then use the Spec-Kit clarify command to provide some additional prompts to clarify actually on the specification what you think it should improve. So the goal is to have a very good and very detailed specification that covers all the important details before we go on to actually step 4. That's the next goal, that we finally make it to step 4, generating a plan, which means then using Spec-Kit plan and providing some prompt here as well. And it will then come up with a plan, whatever this means. We will see, hopefully in a second. I think that's the last clarification round I will do. Yeah, that's actually what we're doing. Walking step by step through the Spec-Kit spec-driven development process. So, great. This is something we have seen earlier already. Every time you do some clarification, it might come up with additional questions. So it finds some ambiguities. So in this case, 5. Last time it was also 5. So we have to provide it some answers. CLI command structures. How should the CLI commands be structured for managing projects, prompts, and resource? Option A is the most common pattern in modern CLI tools. mcpkg project create, mcpkg prompt add, resource list. Yeah, this not mixed. No, not mixed. What is mixed on this one? mcpkg project. prompt resource. There is no mixed in it. But yeah, we will go for the recommendation here. I could have provided this in the prompt, but to be honest, I didn't want to do because I was wondering how it would handle it. And I think being asked for it is actually quite a nice thing. Because now it has also a description, noun, verb, structure for this, which is quite nice. I wouldn't have come up with a noun, verb, structure term for this. So in this case, it was probably a good idea to not be too specific on this. So yeah, it now updates all the functional requirements to match our new information, or to match the information we now provided. When an MCP tool operation fails, how should the error be communicated? Protocol has standard error structure. Using it, ensure. Yeah. No, of course, we go for the recommendation here. Thanks for asking, but yeah, I think that was an obvious answer. But of course, it's better if the coding agent asks 10 times instead of doing just some stupid ideas. So it updates again the stuff. As I already said, this for the people who joined the stream late, this all works not just with OpenCode. You can do this with Claude code as well. Works pretty straightforward, exactly the same thing, just different user interface, and the agent might react differently to some details. Let's go through that one as well. Resource metadata structure. What metadata fields should resources support beyond name, URI, and content? Name, URI, and content. Let's quickly go back to the URI, name, content, and it needs a MIME type actually. Yes. So, great. MIME type description created. Yeah, absolutely. So we go for yes, for the recommendation. The interesting thing is we are doing all of that in pretty much the same session. So we started a new session at the beginning for the specification process, and we ran now the second clarification step, and it's still the same session within OpenCode that we run here, which is nice. So, question 4. Should prompts have metadata fields like resources, description, timestamp? Yes, they should. So updating all the content. It's interesting that we didn't get beyond the specify, which is the first real part in getting a feature specified, and we have several steps to go. But we are already close to 2 hours on stream. Takes quite some time. How should CLI commands specify which workspace to operate on when managing projects and prompts and resources? Always require workspace flag. Yes, exactly. We introduced the so in a previous specification or clarification round, we introduced the concept of the default workspace. So when the flag is omitted, the default workspace will be used. So we will do this here as well. So updating all the functional requirements. Great. Completed. Summary is given. Very nice. All critical ambiguities resolved. That's exactly the outcome we want to have here. So now that we completed this, the planning session, let's complete this by actually telling it to so let's first share the session. URL copied to clipboard. Now commit the specification and create a draft pull request for this branch. Add a link to the specification session. This one to the pull request description. Let's see how it will handle this. But basically the idea is to have a branch where, so that every step we want to basically commit in a separate commit so that we can see the history going through it. And then in the pull request, we also want a link to each of the sessions we went through with OpenCode here. So this is for the people new here. This is actually an interesting feature. So you can use the share command, and the share command will actually synchronize the current session with the OpenCode server, and you will get this public URL here that we can add to the pull request actually. And that we can add to the pull request. And with that in place, we can create, we can actually document what we did to get there, have the session documented and so on. So this is just additional information towards the pull request. Since this is a public project, I think it makes a lot of sense to also tell the world how we actually created the code here. I think that makes a lot of sense to have those sessions included, especially in public projects. So now it pushes the branch, just confirming the usage of the key here. Perfect. Now let me create the pull request with the GitHub CLI. Yes, feel free to do so. I hope I authenticated it. Okay, it created one. And it created also the URL here. So let's quickly go through the pull request that it created now. Let's have a look at feature specification for mcpkg package manager. Well, we will do more than just this feature specification, but okay. Summary, this PR adds a comprehensive feature specification, blah, 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 blah. Specification session, full specification development process. And then we can click on this and we see creating mcpkg workspace management tool. Da-da-dum. So we have a date when this was actually created. Here we have all the details of the session being linked here, what the agent actually did to get there. We see the diffs here. That's pretty cool stuff. And we can quickly go to the bottom. So we see the latest edits. And we can also see that there's still stuff uploaded. Yeah, okay. Waiting for additional things. Okay, great. So we can see actually the session here afterwards. Yeah, ignore the checklist here, but that's actually the point. We have a draft pull request now, having all the things included that we need here, which is quite nice. And now the idea, yeah, the DCO is failing because it didn't do a sign off. We will have to do some sanity, some cleanups here afterwards, but that's not really the big deal. We will do that later. So let's first, so specification was actually quite nice. So next step is generate a plan. So now after almost 2 hours, we are close to finally come to the technical requirements. So still some stuff to do. You can now be specific about the tech stack and other technical requirements. You can use Spec-Kit plan command that is built into the project template with the prompt like this. We are going to generate this using .NET Aspire, using Postgres as database, front end should use Blazor server with drag and drop task boards, real-time updates. There should be a REST API created with a project API, task API, and notifications API. The output of this step include a number of implementation detailed documents. Yes. Check the research MD document to ensure that the right tech stack is used based on your instructions. You can ask Claude Code to refine it if any of the components stand out, or even have it check the locally installed version of the platform framework you want to use. Yeah. Okay, there's a research MD. Okay, and then the next step would be to validate the plan. By doing what? Okay, it tells us to do this after the plan. Next time, maybe. Good. I want to go through them, looking for areas. Okay, let's see. So first of all, we will create a new session and then SpecKit plan. So this is now the technical specification of the whole thing. So let's see how this will work. So SpecKit plan. Let's first verify that that it didn't leave anything open. So it committed everything except the commands. That's exactly what we want to. So we can now continue. SpecKit plan. We will build this in the existing Python project using typer for the CLI and the MCPS and the low level MCP SDK for the MCP server implementation. We will use Python's built-in SpecKit module to store the data in the operating systems data dir. So the SQLite database files will have the name format workspace name dot mcpkg. Build an SQLite module to store the data in the operating systems. No, to store the data in the mcpkg directory within the operating system's data dir. The SQLite database files will have the name format workspace name.mcpkg. So next, what else do we want to say about the technology? When a new workspace is created, the database file is created and all database migrations are executed. database migrations must be able to run to run when the workspace specific database file is opened, it must be checked that the database migrations are up to date and migrations must be run. If not, use a lightweight solution for database migrations without lightweight solution for database migrations with plain SQL for migrations and without rollback functionality. So the idea is basically that since this is a local tool, we run the database migration every time we access this. We kind of track how far we are with the database migrations, and we don't want a big fat solution like Alembic, something like that. I think that's just overkill for the use case we have here. You don't want to ship this to every client. So we want a small, simple, lean solution, something lightweight. I think the easiest would probably be to have our own database migration implementation just in a few lines of Python code. But let's see what the agent is coming up with. So what else do we want to have? We want the low-level API being used. We have specified how the data is stored. We have specified that we use Python typer for the CLI. Come up with a proper functional testing solution that allows automated testing of CLI and MCP server. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. We want to test this in a proper way, and have a good solution for that. Yeah, maybe it clarifies what we mean by that. We will see. So I think we have testing covered. We have DB migrations covered. Do not use an ORM to access the database. We want plain SQL instead. Okay, let's see where we go with that. Creating a plan. That's nice. That's exactly what we were saying to do. So let's see. Okay, it went for the technical context. It checked the section from Constitution. Now it will go through different phases to do all kinds of things. Let's see. This might take a while, I guess. What I really like about these things like Spec-Kit is that they go for a very structured, straightforward approach. That is also sometimes very detailed, but the level of detail is probably a very good feature here. So I really appreciate how detailed things are. So I guess we can come out with some good outcome. Now on stream, I'm trying to avoid to read too much of the details, just to grab a first impression of how good it is. But if using this on a day-to-day base, I would really clearly read all the details and then be more precise about clarification. But this is something to get used to. You know, it's as you use such a tool and such a framework, you need to get used to the level of detail and the clarity you have to provide there, so that it gets or that it comes up with the results that you actually want to have. And I think this is something to learn actually while using the tool. Right now, I think I'm so far quite excited about the outcome after some clarification session. I'm really looking forward how this will actually look like when we are coming to the implementation phase. I played around with other tools similar to Spec-Kit as well, like AgentOS, for example. And this is quite impressive when you come to the point that they break down the task, which will be the next thing to do. And once you have the task breakdown and we'll start working on the different tasks, then that's quite a nice thing. You know, it's great to see an agent actually do things and work on things. But yeah, you have to actively work with that to get to a point that things are working, or that you get used to actually making things work. Oh, And what we can also see here is now that it creates more documents. So we have a plan now, and we also have this research document that was talking about earlier. We can see it here already. It generated a research document, it generated a data model, and we see this here in the on the Git status already, that there is some documents already being available. So yes, let's see how this will actually look when it's done. So the data model is also done now. Yes, I'm using Claude directly from the command line. But in this particular case, I'm using OpenCode, not Claude Code. So Claude Code would be the tool from Anthropic, being provided by them. But I'm using OpenCode, which is an open source coding agent. Competition to Claude Code, actually. But under the hood, there is Claude Sonnet 4.5 being used here through the Anthropic subscription I have. So this is Claude, my pro subscription of Claude AI that I already had. You can use a different provider here as well. That's one of the benefits of OpenCode, that they support tons of providers. So you can also use models from OpenAI, or you can use, for example, GitHub Copilot as a model provider. So instead of using it through Anthropic, you could use it through GitHub Copilot, and then you have access to Claude Sonnet 4.5 or something like that. So if you have a subscription with GitHub Copilot, for example, then you can use just the existing subscription to access the models through that one. In the end, it's the same model, more or less, as long as GitHub doesn't do any weird things under the hood. But in the end, yes, I'm in my terminal. I'm using a terminal user interface, and there is some Claude Sonnet behind that. But I think the more important part than just Claude Sonnet here is that there is this agent, OpenCode agent, running here, which is doing a lot of things. So it's doing way more than just providing a chat. As you can see, it actually executes its own plan here. So it made a plan actually to run my planning session here. Before we ran a specify command, so it specified actually the functionality. We clarified this. Now it's going through the planning of that. So it creates a technical plan, how it should be implemented. You can see here for now, the latest outcome is a summary actually on the different CLI commands and flags and so on that need to be provided here. Yeah, so it does all of that for us based on the descriptions we did, and we'll come up now with a technical implementation plan. Yeah, that's basically what we're doing right now. Trying to let OpenCode as a coding agent, fully open source, specify, or together with the agent, we are specifying how to build this concrete functionality. And in a later step, we will hopefully let it even start building the functionality. I'm not sure if we will see the full ready-to-use functionality being built out here, but let's see how far we get. I think we are not that far away from finally getting into implementation phase, but let's see. So it came up with a summary. All tasks completed, implementation plan completed. So the branch is still mcpkg ISA, the weird name for the feature that it gave it. But yeah, it's always working on this. It is still working on this branch. We have generated the artifacts, which is, so it started with doing some research. It made some design. It even updated, well, with new technologies. Actually, Python 3.13 was already part of, well, I don't know, maybe it wasn't mentioned in the agent file. It has a quick start, which is also quite interesting. So let's quickly open the editor. So we are in the terminal. My editor is, of course, the NeoVim, and it started with the research. Actually, let's have a look into the research here. The research MD provides some overview, captures this thing, functional testing approach, decision multi-layer testing approach for CLI command line testing. Okay. PyTest fixtures with in-memory SQLite for database testing. Yeah, that's actually a quite good decision to use an in-memory SQLite for database testing. I like that. Async IO MCP operations. Well, yeah, I don't know. Could make sense. Let's see how this looks like. The Typer CLI runner, that's actually quite interesting. I didn't know that this even exists, but it sounds like a very good solution for that part. Rational native integration. Okay. Correctness. Alternative considered. Manual subprocess invocation, too brittle to inspect. HTTP-based testing only. Rejected. Yeah, there is only stdio. Well, it's actually, the statement here is actually not true. MCP transport can be HTTP, but we are not using HTTP here. We will just use stdio right now. End-to-end only with no unit tests. Well, yeah, TDD. One of the things that was quite interesting with SpecKit is, so the spec-driven development framework I'm using here is that it right from the beginning stated TDD as the way to go, which I really like. Big fan of TDD. So implementation guidance. We have the CLI runner. Yeah. Interesting. It even comes up with testing examples here, actually. How to set up actually a test. I really like that one. That's quite nice. So PyTest fixtures. Best practices. Yeah, I will not go too much into detail now. I just wanted to check this out. Let's quickly go to the next one. The quick start. Project create auth module. Project list. Yeah, I don't care how this is outputted. Maybe later we will even build a TUI for that, but right now it's fine how it is. Yeah, we can provide a run mcpkg prompt at code review. Review this authentication code for security issues. All good things. API docs. Let's also have a quick look, because that might be interesting as well. So we have the CLI commands here specified. We have seen this earlier. I will not look into that in detail. The requirements came already from the planning phase. We have the MCP API being specified here. That's actually something we should have a look into. Oh, that's nice. So it comes up with the detailed model context protocol. So if you don't know model context protocol, how it works, so basically it works pretty much like the protocol used by the language servers in VS Code as well, or NeoVim also uses the language servers. So the way this works is it uses stdio as the transport layer, supports HTTP as well as an option, but we will just use the stdio one. And so it will connect via std in and std out as input and output stream. And it will then use JSON RPC2 based methods. So basically the protocol is based on JSON RPC2. So for example, it will have a method initialize and then provide a protocol version, capabilities, prompt tools, blah, 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 blah. So this is basically how this works. It defines here the handshake stuff and so on. So basically this is just, and that's quite interesting. It comes really up with proper requests and responses, how they are defined by the protocol itself. That's quite nice. I wouldn't have written all of that down, to be honest, but looks like it is doing that. And the last thing I wanted to come up with is I wanted to look into the data model, because I'm expecting something here that is not how I want this to be. So workspace, fields, names, name must match pattern. Dun, dun. Default workspace name is automatically created on first use. So let's see how it solved our suggestion or our requirements here. Python model. So looks like the Python model uses data classes here. So we have a workspace and a name and a DB path, which is fine. Actually, it's not really necessary, as we specified where things should be stored, but it's also fine to have a DB path here. So that's okay. The description no, the project is a SQLite table. We have a schema for that. We have a data class used for that. That's fine. Prompt as well. But I see already the used ID here is integer. And that's of course not working. We will later implement a synchronization protocol as well. And synchronization is of course something where we want UUIDs being used, this will just be much more handy to do. And so we will go for UUIDs here instead. Everything else looks okay right now. So prompts are basically in this version meaningless, but we will look later into being more precise about them. Yeah, so we will probably not merge this one because this is just an experiment. We will probably go for a second run, or I will go for a second run off stream. But let's see, maybe we can make it somehow. I really like that it's created at, updated at, but there are a few things I'm missing. The The usage of data classes is okay. Comes up with the OS specific database name or parsers, which is fine. SQLite, Pragma, well, on migration strategy, select max version, find pending migration, apply migration in order 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's not gonna work. Okay, so we need to be more precise on how it should do that. So Spec-Kit, clarify, implement, checklist. What was it? Analyze, I think. No. It was telling something in the documentation. Let's once again look into that. So create the spec, create the technical implementation plan, tasks. Where were the optional ones? Avoidable slash analyze consistency covering matrix. Run after Spec-Kit tasks. Oh, run clarify after that. Okay, then let's run clarify once again. So Spec-Kit clarify. Use UUIDs for primary keys in the database. Use fast UUID to generate UU. No, let's not do that. Let's just use the built-in ones. Otherwise, we have maybe more testing effort. Let's do that later. So use UUIDs for primary keys in the database. Use date and time at the beginning of migration scripts to identify scripts to identify their version, track the version and sort them in the right order. Track the latest version in the database, obviously. And was there anything else? No, I think that's it. Let's just clarify these things. That's not that much. Everything else we can probably change later. So it will now go through everything. And before a pull request can be merged in the end, I will definitely go through all the code and adjust this manually if necessary. So all the AI generated code could be completely nonsense. I would still work through it just to make sure that everything is in the way I want this. When the system encounters a database connection failure or migration failure during MCP server startup, how should it behave? Fail immediately with descriptive error and exit code is the safest approach. Yes, that's exactly what we want to do. Retry doesn't make sense. We're talking about a database in a local file, so we are not creating a connection, neither through a network connection. So let's go with the safest option here. Sorry. So it will generate the updates. Second question. What logging behavior should the system provide during normal operations? Log to std error, info level default. This follows Unix conventions where std error is for logging diagnostics while std error is for data info. Yeah. But yes, that's exactly what we want. Yes. Is the solution we want. Log to std error at info level by default. No configuration needed. Yes. So we are clarifying quite some stuff. So question 3, the maximum name length. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's say yes. That makes a lot of sense. So now let's see where we go with all of that. So it's generating and generating and generating all day long. But I will not clarify any further stuff. So we will just I just want to see this also starting to build something today. We still have to go through the task breakdown. So let's continue on that path and let's accept that maybe we could be more precise in some cases. Luckily, I didn't have to write all the specification myself. I'm very happy about that, looking at all the code here being written. Yeah, let's see. Nice summary. Proceed to Spec-Kit plan. Yes, that's exactly what we want to do. But first, we will actually take share. So for the people new to the stream, so what the share command does, it creates this nice URL for this particular session. It will upload in the background all the session that we had here with all the details, the responses from the agent and so on. Will all go to the OpenCode AI link here on the top, and we can actually use that one to tell hello NYR. So we can use actually the sharing feature here to link this from the pull request. So this is a public URL. So there's also a self-hosting option from OpenCode. But for me, it's an open source project, so making this publicly available is totally fine. So we will link this in the pull request. Okay, so commit the plan and update the pull request title and description accordingly. Add a link to this planning session. No, where has it gone? No, it doesn't work. Oh, come on. My aim, so what I'm going for is I'm actually building this mcpkg tool. It's the idea is to have a model context package manager. That's roughly the idea, with synchronization features and stuff like that for teams to collaborate. Nevertheless, what I'm aiming for on the stream is actually to get OpenCode as my coding agent of choice. So I try to replace my current Claude code setup with OpenCode, and I want to go deep into spec-driven development and use GitHub's Spec-Kit framework for doing that. And we made it now through the planning session. So we got the basic setup, the basic principles set up. We got the specification set up before, where it's about what the functionality should be. And now we finalized the planning, which is more about the technical details and the technical specification. I just want to commit this change and update the pull request. And then the next step will be to run through the task breakdown, and then finally we can let the agent start implementing the feature. But until and then we'll see how long the stream will still go. But right now I'm just adding this this current change to the pull request, so that we have this being shared. And I also want that the 3i.mkpkg. So luckily this URL is not too complicated. Add a link to this planning session to the pull request as well. Yeah, so now we let OpenCode actually create a pull request, or no, a commit for us, and update the pull request, so that generates git add files. Great. Yeah, I have a YubiKey to protect my SSH key, so that's why I need to touch it to make sure that the pull request is committed properly with a signature and pushed. So let's see when it's done. So far, I'm pretty happy about the outcome. It could have been worse. I really like the fact that we got now some specification done. I'm still not convinced that markdown files in the Git repository is really the right way to do this type of documentation. I really think that, yeah, I'm building mcpkg because I think we need a different tool to do that. But yeah, let's see where we will go with that. So it edits the title. We can also look up the pull request in a second. Let's just wait until it's done with all the stuff. Perfect. It completed everything. So let's have another look into how the pull request now looks. At mcpkg implementation plan with design contracts and clarification. Phase 1, the research. Awesome. Great. So for the planning sessions, it still has the link included for the first session. So if you want to look this up, so yes, I'm from Germany, and to be more precise, I'm from the Berlin region. So if you want to look this up in the pull request, so it's the 9th pull request, and we have the first session on the specification here link. So you can just click here and you can then see actually the agent session here being linked right from the pull request. So you can look all the history that we went through with the specification as well. So this is actually the things that it added. So there was a user story. It has been updated then with some additional information and all the stuff. And now we have the same for our design session, which is which we recently had. So this is all about the technical things, doing all of that. So here you can see we have a summary. mcpkg is a CLI tool. Okay, that's updating the plan. Okay, interesting. But plan, yeah. So here it adds all the different things, so you can see actually how it ran through the session actually. Nice. So now we have a specification. We have a plan. Let's go and do the task breakdown, which is the next thing to do. So we will create a new session and then run Spec-Kit tasks. And I think we run this just without any additional input. Let's see. Was there any additional input actually being wanted? Yes, we could have provided some user content or some user context. I don't know what the user context should actually have been here, but we could have provided it if we wanted. We just don't need it, you know, so, or at least I think we don't need it. Let's see if I'm right with that. But the expectation is now that it will go through the task template here as well, or it will use the task template. You can see this here. There's a couple of templates being added by specify. Yeah, learning German is not necessarily the most easy language. I totally agree on that. It's I know many people who struggle more or less with it, but yeah, I think 180 days for learning German is probably is not enough. I think you need more, and you need to practice it as well. So yeah, so there's templates being added by Spec-Kit to your everything that comes from Spec-Kit basically lives in the specify directory, and this includes then templates and our specification and all the stuff. And yeah, we get hopefully some good planning now. nothing has been created yet. So let's wait. So NYR, why are you actually learning German, or why did you? While you're answering, so let's have a look. We have now the task being created, so that's exactly what we wanted. So let's once again open the editor with the tasks that have been created. MC Package Manager for AI Coding Agent, prompts and resources. Design, prerequisites, plan, blah, blah, blah. Tests are written before implementation following TDD principles. Yes, of course we do. Group by user story to enable independent implementation and testing of each story. Nice. That's actually, I really like the way how it structures the work of the agent in a very similar way how I would probably do it for developing it myself as well. There's a question, isn't making AI write 90% of your code bad? I don't think so. There was actually quite nice nice blog post recently. Maybe we can figure this out. So there was, I think that's how he's called. Yes, this one here. There was this 90% blog post actually, and this blog post is quite interesting because Armin is not some random junior developer or something like that, and Armin is actually a very senior person doing Python development for many years, and he's a well-known person, a well-known developer in the community. And he wrote this blog post actually, which was basically the outcome of a transition from being completely against or being completely negative about the value of AI in coding to, oh, this is actually gonna change the way of working. And in this blog post, he shares actually that he's currently working on his new own startup, where he is building, or where he is coming up with his Claude code-based setup to actually write 90% of the code through AI. So this is not the typical thing that you might see on any random vibe coding bullshit video on YouTube. This is actually more about doing it properly so that it's not garbage. You know, you want so if AI can write 90% of your code, but it is good enough, and that's actually the thing that we aim for. And if you read through this this blog post, I think there's quite some interesting insights here as well from a very senior person who reached actually this point where 90% of the code in his current code base is written by AI. And that's actually quite some interesting thing. Highly recommend this. Sadly, the chat is on the wrong computer. So feel free to read up this this article. Yeah, I would love to pin this in the chat. If someone can dig this up and paste the link here in the chat, feel free to do that. Right now, that's actually what I'm aiming for. On the other questions, what is my terminal that I'm using? That's Alacrity. So I'm using CachyOS, which is an Arch-based Linux distribution, and Alacrity is my favorite terminal for quite a while. I'm using it right now with Zellish. So I'm not a Tmux user, I'm a Zellish user for having the multiple panes, so I can switch here to the left and to the right between my agent and other stuff. But since I'm using Hyperland, I could just also do something like this and create a second terminal here. I'm just not doing that right now. but maybe later. There's still a few things that I get from Zellish that I don't get from Hyperland in my current flow, but I'm adopting to it slowly. So maybe next session, next stream will be on Hyperland only without Zellish. And CachyOS, by the way, comes with nice Hyperland setup out of the box. I copied a lot of stuff from Omarchi basically to make it look a little bit even better than the default one. But yeah, so terminals are the pretty operating system is CachyOS. So I hope this answers the question about if 90% of your code AI written is a bad thing. I don't think so. But to come back to that question, actually, why or how do we get there? And I think this spec-driven development approach is actually quite an interesting way to get there. I'm not 100% sure if it will really bring us there, but I think it's the right direction to go. So while we are talking here, I will run the analyze command because that's actually what the documentation said. After the tasks, run the analyze to make sure everything is consistent and everything is ready. But yeah, so the idea is basically that the AI together with me actually comes up with a proper specification. And if you look into the details here of the specification that we created so far, there are user stories, there are functional requirements, there's now tasks being set up grouped around the user stories. There's technical specification about the database schema, about how specific things should be implemented using data classes, using this and that. So quite a lot of cool things. It still requires that I read the code, that I read the specification, that I clarify things on the specification so the AI can improve it. I could also change it myself, but at the end, the quality of the specification will have a huge impact on the quality and the preciseness of the AI in implementing the feature. And once we ran through the analyze, we will finally also do exactly that. So we started almost 3 hours ago with just setting up the Spec-Kit within the current project, and now we have specified roughly the first things. It now does the final analysis, and then once we are done with that, it can finally start with implementing. While waiting, let me quickly see if I can look up the article. Yep. So let's see. So regarding so first of all, here is the article I mentioned. So if you want to read the article from Armin, feel free to follow the link in the chat. Regarding the hallucinations, I think you're right. Of course, LLMs have a strong tendency to hallucination. No doubt about that. Nevertheless, I would like to add here that the whole point of reviewing also the specification and all the stuff is actually to correct exactly those things, you know. So this is not something like I tell Cloud Code to so I don't tell Cloud Code where so just build me an app, you know. That's for sure creating lots of hallucinations and a lot of garbage. But what I'm trying to come up with is actually a good technical specification where everything is created or defined properly, so that the LLM, so that all the hallucinations that came up can be already addressed early on. So that's actually the thing. So let's, no, wrong place. I have to switch actually my keyboard back. So let's once again go to the editor. Let's go through, no. So generated now the task here. And what we can see actually is that it has different phases defined. So setup, foundational, blocking prerequisites, storage, database, data models and validation. So it has defined a lot of tasks, all well numbered, that need to be done. And for all of these tasks, you see also that there is, there's also all the documentation that it created. So when we look here at the top, we see that design documents from this directory, prerequisites, plan MD. Yes, you can find the source for the custom agents, or better, the custom commands and all the stuff. You can find the source actually in the description of the stream. On YouTube, there is a link to the GitHub Spec-Kit repository. So yeah, it is basically GitHub Spec-Kit, but you find it in the description of the stream. At the bottom, there are all the links of, you find OpenCode, you find Spec-Kit, you find my open source project, if you want to follow up the pull request that will finally come out of that session here. Maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow. And yes, you can work on multiple in parallel, but the project right now is in a very early stage, so that parallelizing doesn't work, doesn't make much sense. But also something very interesting when you look here into OpenCode, which I'm using here. They have this concept of a multi-session to start multiple agents in parallel on the same project. I haven't looked too deep into that. I don't know if this just means I run multiple agents, or if it supports also some nice things like working with like integration with Git workspaces or something like that. I have to look this up myself. I'm not too deep into. I'm not an expert of OpenCode. I'm just getting started with my setup using OpenCode as a Cloud Code alternative and Spec-Kit actually as a framework for the spec-driven development. But you find the link in the description of the stream. So yeah, so we tell basically the tasks tell actually what the prerequisites here are. So we have the different design documents that we have created already and reviewed, and where we are clear that this is actually how to go. And now it creates all the different tasks that are depending on the design documents and that are about implementing the different steps in the design document. Okay, so we have the different phases. So we have some base stuff. We have phase 3, which is user story 1, work with default workspace. Write these first, ensure fail before implementation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure we will have at the end a very, very huge pull request with a lot of code in it, but this is an initial version, so it's maybe also fine to have that. Right now, let's close this. So once again, let's update let's commit the changes and update the pull request. So to do that, we once again run the share command, which will create this URL here at the top that we can share this. So commit the tasks and update the pull request description with a link to the task breakdown session. So for everyone who's new to the session here, or to the stream here, This, oh, that's interesting. Well, let's do it again. So this thing here, this URL being created here is actually coming from the share command in OpenCode. So it will upload the whole chat to this, the whole chat session actually, to this, to its server and make it available under this URL. This is a public URL. If you want something private to share, then you need to self-host it. They have a self-hosting offer as well. But for me, it's an open source project, so public is no problem. You can also disable this feature, and you have to explicitly call share to share actually a session. But the cool thing is I can now include this I can include this link here in the pull request, and then I have all the sessions with all the interaction with the coding agent being right in the pull request being linked, so everyone can click on that and see the history of the interaction with the agent, which I think is a very good thing, especially for an open source project where this type of transparency, in my opinion, is a very, very crucial kind of thing. But yeah, the session is public, so everyone with access to the link can use it. So be aware of that part before you use that feature. So once again, we are through that. Let's quickly have a second look. Here's a pull request. Still doing something? No, it's done. So now we have the specification session, we have the planning session, and now the task breakdown session as well. So when we click on this one, here you can see generating task workflow specification. We see the complete context, the complete interaction, where it's actually reading, the plan actually from the current file system and so on. Here it does something with Anthropic, whatever, show more. So it does things. So you can look this up if you want to. On the pull request, we still have the failing pull request. It's still the DCO check that is failing because it doesn't include a sign-off, which is fine. I think the constitution or maybe the agent.md can be used to fix this, but we can do this later. No, I haven't tried bmet method. I even don't know what bmet method is, so maybe you might want to explain it a little bit. Okay, while you're explaining bmet method, let's come back to actually our session. So we create a new session, and now we are finally at the end of doing an implementation. So let's implement, execute all tasks to build the feature according to the plan. Let's quickly go through the detailed process. We have functional clarification, generated a plan, have validated the plan, it's another of those frameworks. Yeah, there's also Agent.os and others. I really think there is a lot of things going on there, and nobody has the right answer right now. I'm just getting started to evaluate Spec-Kit. I have looked into Agent.os already, which I also liked. So Agent.os has a slightly different approach, but with the version 2 that has just been released, I would probably give it another try as well. But right now I want to get started with Spec-Kit, which also has a lot of interesting approaches here with scripting. But thanks for mentioning bmet method. I will look probably into that one as well, because I just want to understand what works best in the end. I think there is so much going on in that space. Tons of agent, tons of user interfaces, tons of specification frameworks and whatever. Yeah, so we'll definitely have a look into that. So thanks for mentioning Beam method. We'll have a look into that. So we have created the specs, and now here, step 7, implementation. That's where we go. And well, looks like we just run this command. Nothing special on top. Cool. Let's just give it a try. SpecKit implement. And let's see where this is going. I think this will probably take quite a while because there's a lot of things to build, a lot of tests to write, a lot of plumbing to do, and I'm pretty sure the agent will take quite a while. I don't know if SpecKit is only TDD, but the way SpecKit is designed is it explicitly tells, or it is explicitly built around the idea to do TDD, which is fine to me because I am a big fan of TDD, so I really want an agent to do TDD as well. I don't know how difficult it would be to get rid of TDD in SpecKit. But during the specification phase, you could probably, or no, there is the first thing you do actually when you set up your SpecKit project, when you set up SpecKit, is you can create the so-called constitution. There's a SpecKit constitution command for that. And this basically defines all the basic principles. And you can give it some details about how this should look like. So if you don't want to do TDD, what I would do is I would try to run this initial SpecKit constitution command and would provide as a prompt, would provide it that it should actually not do TDD. And so then, yeah, so I think you can disable it this way by just telling it don't do TDD, never ever, and tell it some other approach that it should follow here or not. And I think that's also totally fine. So I like TDD. I really want AI to follow that approach. But I totally agree that this is not always working like you like you want it. Nice. At least I'm not the only one who likes or who thinks it's a good idea. But yeah, I think the TDD approach is in general a good one, and if AI can do it as well, then I really think it should. So we see it already working, and it does a lot of things. The problem is that it will now run through all the stuff task by task by task. I have no clue how long this will take, to be honest. And I think I will just let it run here now, and we'll look into it tomorrow morning or something like that, how far it got. But finally we made it to a point where it's actually creating some outcome. So if you're interested in the final outcome of all of that, also the different sessions that we went through with the coding agent, feel free to look up the pull request. I will add the pull request later to the description as well, a link to the pull request, but feel free to look it up. You will find the links to the sessions on OpenCode AI, so you can read through the history there and what the agent actually did. Feel free to check out the links in the description regarding SpecKit and so on. And I think I just now let the implementation run here. It is now at the SQL queries, and we will see how well this works. So far, I'm quite impressed regarding the specification and planning phase. There was a lot of back and forth, and it felt really like a good refinement, but within 3 hours, so still more productive than just writing everything from hand. And and doing all of that manually and having tons of meetings to get the specification running. So that part was actually quite nice. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed of SpecKit. What is an HF model? You mean a Hugging Face model? No. The model I'm using here, you can see here on the bottom, I'm using Claude Sonnet 4.5, 4.5, yes. And it's hosted by Anthropic. So OpenCode supports that you log in with your Claude AI account, and then you can use just your existing Anthropic Pro or Max subscription. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. But OpenCode also supports, I think it also supports local models via Olama if you want to, maybe some other stuff. OpenCode also supports GitHub Copilot subscriptions, for example. So you can log in with your existing GitHub Copilot subscription and then use Claude Sonnet or GPT-5 or whatever through your GitHub Copilot subscription. So in the end, it's just how you pay for the model usage. But OpenCode supports plenty of different providers and models in the background. So for example, in my day job, I have only a Copilot subscription, so I can use Sonnet 4.5 through Copilot subscription. For my open source stuff, I use my Claude AI Pro subscription, which gives me access to Sonnet 4.5 as well. And in that way, I get access to the model. I could also pay for the Anthropic API directly, so can provide an Anthropic key. I think it also supports Bedrock if there is no other way to get access to models, for example. So if you want to use Claude Sonnet via AWS Bedrock, if this is maybe your enterprise policy or something like that, I think it also supports this approach in the end. So that's one of the reasons why I'm actually so interested in making making OpenCode work, because it is not just an open source coding agent, which Claude Code, by the way, is not. It is also a coding agent that supports plenty of models and providers. So you're not locked into a specific vendor here. And it also doesn't do nasty things. It just supports the standard agents.md file, not like Claude Code, which only supports CloudMD and all this stuff. So that's actually the cool thing. And Spec-Kit also is what I really like. I showed this in the beginning of the stream. I really liked on Spec-Kit that it supports different agents. So different to Agent OS, which, for example, supports Claude Code, basically. Maybe a second one, I don't know. The Spec-Kit from GitHub actually supports OpenCode. It supports Codex, Claude Code, Gemini, whatever. Copilot itself, of course, as well. I think that's a must-have as a GitHub project. But yeah, it supports plenty of them. So now we are done with the implementation. That's interesting. I expected this to take way longer. Okay, updating the plan. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4 have been done. So implementation summary. I've successfully implemented the package manager feature through phase 1 to 4, completing 36 tasks with 64 passing tests. That's nice. I didn't expect that it will do it while we are still on stream, but it's nice to see. So it went through setup, created test directory, migration directory. Okay. The foundational 13 tasks, implemented comprehensive SQL queries for all CRUD operations. Okay. Phase 3 for user story 2 to 9. So what is remaining? Remaining user stories 51 tasks is pending. Okay. So let's quickly go through that. Remaining work, prompts, MCP read access, server, and so on. Task completed. 37.5%. 1% pass rate of tests. I hope that's the case. Everything else wouldn't make sense. The project has a solid foundation with validated models, migrations, queries, and CLI framework. The remaining files were built on this foundation to add prompt and resource and MCP server functionality. That's nice. But I wonder why it stopped actually, and it doesn't tell me if I should just tell it to continue or what's going on. But let's make it simple. Can we use Spec-Kit OpenCode for code review if I have GitLab and Amazon Q at work? That's actually a good question. I don't know, to be honest. I haven't tried it out for that. Spec-Kit for sure can support Amazon Q. I saw that that Amazon Q was on the list of assistants. When you initialize Spec-Kit, you can select the assistant, and Amazon Q was one of them in the list, when I remember correctly. I think OpenCode had also something in the documentation regarding GitLab, but I'm not sure anymore. Maybe there was something. I don't remember exactly. Let's see, GitLab. Okay, there's a GitLab section. Use OpenCode in GitLab issues and merge. Okay, that's, yeah, I don't know if this works for that particular case. I cannot tell you actually if you can use it for code reviews. What you can do for sure is you can use it for coding actually. For everything else, I have to admit, you have to try this out and then figure out if this is a thing working for you. Personally, I would say, so I'm more in favor of the idea to have a specification being written together with an AI agent and then let the AI agent do the implementation. And then when the implementation is done by the agent, I would always do a human code review. And based on that human code review, also do some changes actually on the code that the AI agent wrote. So the goal is not 100% code written by AI. The goal is 90%. There's still 10% you want to adjust or write yourself. And I think that no pull request created by an AI agent will be seriously merged without any manual touching. I can't imagine that this is possible. Maybe for some very, very tiny and small bug fixes, but I would assume that the majority of pull requests generated or written by AI will still require some manual touching here and there on the code to make sure that the quality of the code is really the one you want. Otherwise, this will not going to work. Hey Ali, nice to have you on stream. What am I building? So I'm building actually an open source tool called mcpkg. It's the idea is to have something like a package manager for your model context for your MCP, so for your MCP server basically, when you're using a coding agent. And I'm setting up actually my spec-driven development workflow right now. That's the stream I'm doing today. And the idea is to use OpenCode as a coding agent, as a replacement for Claude code, and to use GitHub Spec-Kit framework for spec-driven development. And we just made it through the first implementation session. So so we have done specification, we have done a planning, we have done we have done a task breakdown, and now we ran finally the implementation as well, which went quite fast. I haven't expected this, but we ran here through the first 4 phases of the implementation. There's still phase 5 to 9 being open, so it just did not even half the work yet, but at least it did. And now, yeah, we have something here. Since I want to review everything later and just want to continue on that, I think it's a good idea to stop here for the model and do not continue itself, because as it said earlier in the specification already, these 4 phases here is actually the basic stuff. So it's set up now the database stuff. It's set up now the CLI stuff and all the things that we need. And now it comes to phase 5, 6, 7, 8, where it comes to actually creating the real functionality with the management and the read access to the MCP server. And I think it's a good thing that the model stopped here, or that the agent stopped here actually, because now I would really like to review the code. This is now the point where I can really have a deep look into the code, understand how it solved the things, explicitly change things that I think should be different, and then I can run a new session to continue actually on the implementation, where it can just build on the already reviewed code base from the first run. So that's actually how I would approach this. And since I want to, and since we are now pretty much at the end of the stream as well, I would tell now the agent to once again share this, and let's commit this as well. So we want commit the changes and update the pull request at the link to this first implementation session to the pull request description. So the pull request, if you want to look this up afterwards, you can, no, that's wrong, you can just look into the pull request here. I will update this and make it ready for, it's currently draft, but I will make it ready for merging. I will add the link also in the description of this stream here later. What you can see here, we have already for the specification session, the planning session, and the task breakdown session, we have already added the agent sessions here. So when you click on this link here, this is a public link. When you look here at this OpenCode link, then you see actually this was actually the planning session. So we started with the Spec-Kit specify command, and then we ran here through different iterations of the whole thing. Here's you see different diffs being created here, and you can go through the whole session. And you can do the same actually for the planning session, which was the second one. So this was about the specification of the features. This was about the technical planning and specification, including technical specification of the database schema, the CLI and stuff like that. This was a task breakdown session, and now we will update the whole thing with the first implementation phase, and then there will be a second implementation session on the second phase, on the other phases actually. So that's roughly how we will do that. So then we the pull request will contain a proper summary, including links to all the sessions if you want to look this up, how actually this looked in practice by OpenCode. And in my opinion, it's still a really cool feature, at least for an open source project like this one here, that I can just share the sessions here publicly on OpenCode AI and just link them from the pull request. I think that's really a handy thing. So I can create the necessary transparency and not tell everyone, oh, I wrote this all myself, you know. I didn't. I want to reach a point where 90% of the code is actually written by a coding agent. So writing a command, what type of command is it writing now? It's writing actually this file, I guess. What file is it? No. Commit created. Session link added. Yeah, implementation session 1 has been added. That's great. Implementation progress, 36 of 96 tasks. So this is actually the result of the task breakdown to create these 96 tasks. So now it went through an update, and here you see a lot of summary it created actually. I'm not sure if this will actually be the final pull request description. I will probably look through that. Looks like also the CI build fails. So this is actually quite interesting. So it's the formatting interesting. So it looks like this is actually something I should probably fix then. Looks like the agent's instructions are not good enough. So maybe I'm missing somewhere something. Some quality check or something like that to make sure that the agent runs linting and formatting the right way before it commits things, and I'll just have working tests, because here the CI build is broken. But that's something for the continuation of that stream. Happy to have you all. Happy that you all were here today on stream. Really enjoyed this the chat here as well. I don't know if it can look at Jira. I think it can look at Jira if it has a Jira access token and a curl command being available. That's working for sure. But for everything else, I cannot tell you. You know, it can use curl. It can use JQ. So that should be good enough with an access token in the environment to access Jira and fetch data from Jira tickets. But it doesn't have a built-in Jira tool, at least not that I'm aware of. And I think that's also something that is maybe a little bit overrated, because everything that has an API can actually be accessed through simply curl and JQ. So that's there is a way this will work, even if there is no tool available for that. The most generic one is mostly the one that AI is best at, in my opinion. But if you want some more sophisticated stuff, just ask it to write a little Python script and then use that little Python script. I do this myself every now and then, having little tools. I have a repository on GitHub called tools. I just add the tools basically to my shell environment, so I can call them. So I have aliases for them, so I can just run them via UV run as scripts, and then have everything in place that I need. So it's a very handy way to actually get some stuff automated, and accessing actually a Jira task and fetching some data from it is exactly the thing that you could do through that. So if you have a little tool to do that, that's quite easy to run that. You can even build a very tiny MCP server to do that. If you're using Python, the fast MCP, I did this 2 streams earlier. The fast MCP API that is coming from the official Python SDK is quite awesome. You can have few lines of Python code and you have a running MCP server that can give you prompts or resources. You can use the resources actually to map them to a Jira API, maybe to tickets or something like that. So there's a very simple way how you can use just few lines of Python code. You can even let a coding agent write the Python code to have a simple MCP server running that just fetches data from a Jira server. Yeah, so this is a problem that's rather easy to solve. But yeah, it's something that you can easily automate. I think the really good thing about coding agents is they make automating tasks so cheap because the coding becomes so cheap. They make automating tasks so cheap that you can automate things that you have never thought of automating them. If you follow this idea and this mindset, this opens up a lot of things, a lot of opportunities to actually leverage coding agents to improve your work. But so for now, that's it. So this is a session today. Happy that everyone was on the stream. I hope you read through the 90% article. I hope you got a lot of things out of this session. I was pretty impressed. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the questions you also asked, and great that everyone was so curious about the session today. So I will hopefully do another session next week. Not sure about the topic then, but for sure doing some live coding, and I'm pretty sure OpenCode and the spec-driven development approach will be involved as well. But let's see. So I would really like to see you next time again. And until then, enjoy your time, enjoy the night if you're somewhere where it's now very late. Enjoy your day if you're somewhere in the world where it's very early in the day. And happy that you all were here. See you next time.